Thank you for tuning in to Koppen with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen, and we're here with comic Shauna Lane. Shauna Lane, how the hell are you?
I'm good.
Oh,
Thanks
good.
for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on. And real quick, up top, where can we find you do stand-up comedy in New York City coming up? And where can people find you online if they're not so lucky to live here?
Okay, so let's see. New York City. Well, on Friday I'll be in Connecticut at Comedy Club.
That sounds hilarious.
And actually, you know what? I don't exactly know where it is, but it's Hard Headed Comedy Inc. is the production company.
There can't be too many dog comedy clubs in Connecticut, right?
I know. And I hope that's actually the name of the place and maybe not what she's just calling the show. I don't know.
Okay.
I tend to get a little, I don't know. I get lost in things sometimes. And so I'm like, okay, I know I'm doing that on Friday.
Yeah, that's on your list of stuff to do.
It's up,
All right.
yes. And I love doing her shows. Her name is Luz Michelle. She produces a lot of shows in Westchester and Connecticut. Not in the city so much. In the city... oh my gosh, I can't remember.
But even your show dates would be on. Are you at Shauna Lane on Twitter and Instagram, etc.?
I'm the Shauna Lane on Twitter.
Oh yes, you are the Shauna Lane.
Yes, and I am Lane Shauna on Instagram.
Yeah.
And then I have a website, shaunalane.com.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I put all my stuff on there.
Okay, and then you also have a podcast, I hear.
Yes, The Gone Girls.
Okay.
Free on iTunes.
And now Gone Girls, is that a play on the movie? Because there was Gone Girl the movie. Is it true crime?
Oh God, no!
Oh,
it's us being complete goofballs. It's like a take on us both being complete idiots.
Oh, that's great.
So it's not the Gone Girls like we're badasses or whatever. It's like the Gone Girls were clueless.
I love that.
And when we decided on the name, I had only seen the second half of the movie, and she had only seen the first half. So one night, my boyfriend and I were sitting on the couch, and the movie came on, and I was just like sort of paying attention, and then all of a sudden, she is having sex with him. She slits his throat and kills him, and I was like,
Lord.
"What is happening in this movie?" I was like, "What is going on? Oh my God, this is so crazy." And then Ankara was like, let's do a podcast. And I was like, let's call it The Gone Girls.
Yeah.
Because it was so insane. I wanted people to think like we were crazy, like the movie, but we're not. We're just goofballs. It's totally goofy. We interview comedians in my car most of the time.
I love that. I was about to ask you, that's really professionally recorded, right? You know, we're here in a podcast studio, and she's like, oh, ours is a little bit different than this one.
No,
we're doing it in my car.
We're a traveling podcast.
Oh, that's cool, though. That means you can capture people in Connecticut like other people on the bill. Would you be able to podcast them?
100% anywhere. Yeah.
That's cool.
And that's why we do it in my car a lot. I'll pick her up in the city, and then we drive to wherever, Brooklyn, Queens, Connecticut, wherever. We've done it on my parents' farm.
You go where the guest is.
Yeah, we go where the guest is.
Oh, you're like comedians in cars getting coffee, but it's just like comedians in cars chatting on the podcast.
Literally no budget.
There's no coffee.
There's no coffee. There's no budget. We don't give. I even think that sometimes I'm like, okay, we're in my Subaru studio. That's what we call it because I have a Subaru. And then I'm like, but we're even in my car and I still don't offer them water, nothing. We're like, get in the car and it's 40 minutes. We set the timer and then we're like, the timer goes off. We do a sketch. Each week, one of us writes a sketch. And we cold read it with the guest. And then we're like, we're done. Get out.
That's great.
Yeah,
I love that. Like even Norm Macdonald had that thing where he would write some jokes and have the guest tell them. And the guest isn't always on board. They're like, who the hell writes this stuff? Because Norm, it's only like, I don't even know if Norm has many jokes. It's just his delivery is long, meandering. Like if you ever see him do guest spots on Conan, just a long, meandering delivery where it's almost like he wrote the punchline first and was like, I'll get there eventually. And by the time they'll forget it's a joke, and then they'll be laughing by the time I remind them. Okay, and then what we're going to talk about today is kind of a melange of cooking and wellness and health, and where does your interest lie there?
So funny.
Yeah, I'll let you talk.
You repeated it back to me, and I was like, "Oh my God, I sound so lame."
Oh no, yeah, but I wanted to talk about it because I am interested. I'm kind of the other end of the spectrum where I just eat awful and my health is shit, and so I would like to figure out, if there is a way to eat healthfully through cooking or whatever. Maybe I can, turn this ship around.
Well, I grew up cooking.
Okay.
I grew up, there was 5 kids in my family, and we grew up on a farm. And my mom didn't work. My dad worked, and so my mom cooked breakfast, lunch, and dinner for us. And
Wow.
my dad would cook on Sundays. He would always cook on Sundays, but he also cooked a lot too. And so when I was in 3rd grade, I took, and don't worry, this isn't a long story, because whenever someone's like in 3rd grade, I'm
She's
like,
starting in 3rd grade,
on.
which is fine if you're a 5th grader, but we're a little bit older than that. Right?
A little. I took a cooking class after school. It was this after-school program called Prep, and you could take all these different little like extracurricular classes, and I took cooking, and I
cool.
fell in love with it.
Oh, good.
And then I asked both my parents to teach me to cook when they were cooking, and so then I learned to cook.
Okay.
And then I just kept cooking my whole life, and it's sort of gone up and down. Like I had a drinking problem, and when I was drinking, my cooking was like, macaroni and cheese,
yes,
burgers.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah, it was good.
Bad for your health, maybe.
Yeah, just destroying the kitchen, waking up to a mess, like I was a disaster. But I made some good food. And then, but before that, I was into healthy cooking, and just, I also love going to restaurants and trying things and then going home and cooking it.
Oh.
And then, the drinking happened, but then I got sober.
Okay.
And I sort of went back to healthy living. Somehow in the drinking, I forgot how to cook healthy. And then I started seeing this holistic doctor who was like, you can't eat shit like that. You're not going to feel good.
Yeah.
So then I started cooking healthy again. And then that sort of went up and down with being busy with show business stuff and comedy. And I was sort of busy and sort of eating like on the go. And then I got cancer. And then I was like, okay, I saw, again, my holistic doctor, and he was like, you don't have to, but you might want to basically change your whole life.
Yeah.
And
did he make any kind of promises about if you do X, Y, and Z via your food that it will, your cancer will respond in a certain way? Because I've
100%.
seen some. He did.
He literally said,
Lord.
no, but first he said you need to get surgery and get the cancer out.
Okay, that's good.
And so I did that.
Good.
I didn't do the surgery. I got it done.
That's his credit.
And
right?
then and then I was really confused about chemo.
Okay.
And so I went to him again, and he was like, you don't have to do chemo, but I have patients that didn't do it, and the cancer comes back. And I was like, we're doing the chemo.
Okay.
And then while I was in chemo, I read a lot of books about different ways people healed from cancer treatment, and learned a lot of things about nutrition and wellness in general, like the whole thing, like the holistic healing. And then what happened, I went to the holistic doctor, and he was like, listen, you don't ever have to get cancer again. If you take care of your terrain, meaning your whole body, the cancer will have nowhere to express itself.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'm into it. So now, it's such a struggle. I joke about it on stage because I love food. I love food. But I do love eating healthy, and I love cooking, and I've changed everything in my kitchen. Like, there's no sugar, there's no dairy, there's no I know. It sounds like no joy.
Yeah, I'm just looking at her with this horrified look. She's the opposite of Gaffigan. She's the anti-Gaffigan comic.
God, completely. And but I do have trouble, like, when I go out to eat.
Yeah.
And or like holidays. But I'm learning how to make things and bring them. And I did a job in October with someone who, she said, I was like, oh my God, did you eat that dessert on the plane? And she was like, no. Which sounds weird, but it was like delicious.
Yeah.
And which no one ever says about airplane food, but that had been so long.
What airline is this? Yeah. It was so long ago.
I don't even remember what airline it was, but that's how long it had been since I'd had a dessert, that it was so good.
Wow.
And she was like, I tasted it. I didn't eat it. And I was like, how do you just taste something? And she was like, well, you can't eat everything. But you can taste everything.
I love that.
I know, isn't that great?
So you actually took that, did you take that to heart? So
no,
like, once in a while you're able to?
No, I ate everything while I was there. No, not everything, but I ate a lot of things, and I didn't feel good when I came back. Okay.
Even though you're taking a bite of everything, it still adds
No,
up.
I was eating the whole thing once I took a bite. No, I have no self-control, like, at all.
Yeah, it's almost like an alcoholic can't just take one drink.
100%, and I'm exactly that. I can't, so I definitely have a hard time. Plus, when I get upset, like I want to eat a muffin, and I want to eat a muffin by myself in my car.
Yeah,
it's really weird.
I love your car. Your car figures in big with podcasting and eating, but it's also the same.
I feel safe in it.
Yeah, there's no windows or anything where people can see me. Right? If I sit in here long enough, it'll be foggy. But just I love the instant gratification. So if anything was stressing you out, you can just quickly eat a muffin and you'll at least feel a little bit better.
I will, and I can make muffins that are good for me now too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so
good.
That are delicious. Like there's so many recipes and there's so much stuff available that didn't used to be available. 20 years ago, it was so hard to eat, super healthy.
Yeah, because even like some of the stuff like zucchini or flax or whatever, they can like make things taste moister just by, and you're like, oh my gosh.
I had some flax this morning.
Oh, did you? I feel so on point with my eating, but it's just like I'm a food addict, and so I just know and even alcohol is getting to be a habit. It's just feeding the other. Like some people have their addiction and their secondary thing that's just kind of feeding the addiction, and so for me it's food. And if there were a lot of Overeaters Anonymous meetings in like Astoria, Queens, I would go. But it's just like compared to AA meetings, there's so few Overeaters Anonymous meetings where it's just like I would have to go into Manhattan. It's like, do you know how much that will stress me out? And do you know how many restaurants there are between the subway and the meeting? Like that, and, as somebody who's a little bit of an introvert, like that would stress me out. Like going to in those programs, you have to take numbers. You call people if you're about to pick up food or whatever. Yeah. And it's like that, people calling me at all hours of the night for support is like, that would stress me out to the point where I would feel like eating or whatever. But I mean, if there was a bunch of meetings in Queens, maybe I'd think about it. But I know the joy of just taking down a muffin in about 3 seconds. Yeah.
So what do you do? Oh, so you actually are interested in food. I see.
I'm just a total food addict to the point where it's like, I just wish there were more meetings around. I mean, it's called like white knuckling it. Like, I've lost 50 to 80 pounds on 5 or 6 occasions in my life. Like that's how much I yo-yo. Oh. So if I meet a roommate, they're like, oh, well, you're not that fat. What are you talking about? So like, well, I just lost 80. So I could either keep losing another 50 or you might see me gain another 100, which is usually what happens. Because then I'm nesting and I gain like 100 pounds. Oh my God. I'm such a yo-yo dieter, but just I know that like I probably I'm interested in Gaffigan and I'm interested in the anti-Gaffigan, but I would also be interested, like if my own act, if I kind of put in the hard work of creating an act, it could have a lot to do with food.
Yeah. Do you do stand-up yourself?
I mean, I've done mics in Chicago and New York, but it's like you need perfect hustle to get to as many mics as you can in New York City. Like now that QED Astoria is here and they have a lot of mics, so I really have no excuse. But I was like, I do have hustle to get to the podcast studio 2 times a week for a couple hours. Like that's all the hustle I have. And I'm interviewing comics who are like, oh, I came from New Jersey, I came from Brooklyn, and I'm just like, God bless you.
Right.
Because that's a lot of hustle. So, you've been in it for a long time. Kind of tell me about your hustle along the way.
Okay, so it's so interesting, though, that you say that about being an introvert, because I am also an introvert. Yeah. And what I'm learning, and honestly, my poor boyfriend, like I get books out of the library and I'm like, I figured it out. This is what my problem is. And he's like, oh my God.
I'm going to have to deal with this for a couple weeks.
Yeah. But I'm learning that I'm an empath also.
Okay, and what is that?
An empath is when you feel other people's emotions, but I am a very special empath that I can also feel when people don't feel good or what they're physically when they don't feel good, what they physically feel like, what they're thinking.
And are you sensing that off me right now? That like last night was a tough night for food and alcohol, and right now I feel it?
I'm not super like physically close enough to you, but if I stood next to you and got into your energy field, I'd be able to feel it. Yeah? But it took me a long time to figure out what was going on with me.
Okay. You didn't know you were an empath?
No, I thought I was psychic, which I might be a little bit of that too, but that's a lot harder to I don't have like visions. It's not like I'm like, although I do sometimes. I mean, anyway, my point is that I live in Westchester now and I don't live in the city, and it's made my life so much easier.
That is so funny that, the point is I live in Westchester. That's a hilarious punchline. I don't even know what it means because I've never been to Westchester, but like I think a crowd would laugh just because that's fucking fun. What I'm trying to tell you with being a psychic and an empath is I'm in Westchester now, and I've never felt better. I love that.
I mean, I grew up on a farm, and I used to go from the farm to the city to go on auditions. This is 25 years ago. Then I moved to New Haven, and that made it easier to go to auditions and do stuff in the city. Then I moved to the city. I lived in Washington Heights, and I lived by the water. and I could walk around the cloisters every day.
I lived up there for a month. It's interesting.
It's beautiful,
Yeah.
and it was almost like living in the suburbs, living up there. And I would go downtown, which is where I met Christian Finnegan. Was downtown. I do shows
we just
down
saw
there.
upstairs. Yeah, when I said Shauna, he's like, Shauna who? And I go, Shauna Lane. And he goes, oh, to me and her go way back. We started out together.
So, and then I would go do stuff downtown and all over the place. And I would go back to Washington Heights and I would decompress and I would feel better. But I didn't totally understand that that's what was happening. Then I moved downtown. I lived on 2nd Street. That was super stressful for me. I lived on 7th between A and B. And I started to sort of go inside myself because I was around too much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, then also the drinking and the drugs took off. So anyway, then
it could have had something to do with all that stress.
I think it did.
Okay.
And then blah, blah, blah. I crossed the invisible line, as they say, with the drinking and the drugs, married somebody, moved to Williamsburg. By 2006, the marriage, and then we started a band together. It was so ridiculous.
That's awesome. And the point of that story is now I live in Westchester.
And then ultimately,
I got
sober, finally moved to Inwood, and then moved to Westchester. And then that was 4 years ago. And that's when my career actually started taking off again.
Yeah, because you can write while you decompress, maybe.
Oh, my God. I can write. I can detach from everything. And it's just so much healthier for me to come in here, do stuff, and leave.
And get the hell out, yeah.
Yeah, I come in, I go to auditions, I leave. I come back and do shows at night, and I leave. And it's just better for me. Even if I'm here all day long, I can, again, go sit in my car and I decompress.
And do a muffin, do a podcast.
Do whatever, eat a salad.
I love that. So now the audiences in New York City will benefit from your kind of detached, decompressed writing and the fact that it's just so, you're fruitful now and kind of your writing and career, and you're able to dip in. And so if they want to see in New York City, they will go to shaunalane.com.
Correct.
And then either, Lane Shauna for Instagram or whatever.
Yeah, Lane Shauna Instagram, the Shauna Lane on Twitter, which really I just post jokes on Twitter, but you can get to my website from my Twitter.
Oh, yeah. So if we go to shaunalane.com, we can find you everywhere we need to, but also we'll be able to find Gone Girls.
Yes, the Gone Girls. It's free on iTunes and SoundCloud.
And it's in the Subaru studio, which makes it sound like you're sponsored by Subaru, which I just love.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice because it's like, we don't know that you're in, but you probably say we're in our car and we're doing...
I do say Subaru sometimes. We should get money from that. Yeah, And then I could offer people water in my car.
Come on, Subaru, step up. She wants to be able to feed people water. Shauna Lane, thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's so much fun.